Okay, let's pull up ArcScene. Here's ArcScene here. Let's pull in our same data sets. So we'll do an add data set. By the way, ArcScene pops up like this. There's this toolbar here that's a little different than the standard one. We have some different navigational tools because we can actually fly through. We're going to be able to spin the view and so forth. So let's add in some data sets. Let's pull in that DEM that we've been using. Excuse me. It was this one. Let's rename it to our DEM. There. So here's our DEM. Now what's one of the neat things is this tool here allows you to spin your data around. So we're not blocked into the coordinate system, flat look. Certainly we can look flat at it, but we can spin it and tip it down. But you can see by that we have no elevational information yet. Even though it's in here, we don't have it yet. So how do we get it? Well, one of the ways is you have to go into the layer properties right here, and then you have to go to base heights, and you have to tell the system where do you get your elevation information from. In this case, we're going to float it on a custom surface based on the DEM we just brought in. Okay, and we say okay, let's do that. Now we get a little bit of a surface. Not terribly noticeable. If we zoom in a little bit, we can zoom to a target here. There we go. Maybe back out just a little. Now we ought to be able to spin that surface around a little bit and see the hills. So now we actually do see the surface a little easier. You see how it's just kind of laid on top of the elevation information. And it's easy, by the way, to flip underneath and see it as well. And sometimes you get completely lost. So there's our data set that we're working on. Okay. We can flip back to the full scene again. And another option that we might be interested in is under the data frame scene properties. We can actually, under the general, we can create vertical exaggeration. So if you're not seeing enough elevational change here, you want to accentuate it, you can click here and say make it 1.5 times exaggeration. Adds a little bit more peaks and things like that and valleys, and might make it a little bit more dramatic. Too much and you start looking like the we could start making it look like the Martian landscape. Just a little bit too rough. So 1.5 is usually good to 2. Gives it a little bit more dramatic effect, and yet it isn't so outrageous. Okay, so there's the key features. Now, what we'd like to do is add some data on there. So the first thing we should do is bring in the aerial photography that we have. The same one that we used before. We bring it in, add those two in. It's reading it and creating pyramids and whatever, and there they are. And we don't see a bloody thing. And why not? You know, we spin around. I don't see them in there. And I try to remember where exactly. It's one of the things there underneath. There you go. They're down below. And the reason they're down below is because we haven't adjusted the base height. Right now they're just laying flat. So we go up here, and for each one we right click and we go to properties. We do the same thing we did with the digital elevation model. We say base heights, float on a surface, pick the same one, and say OK. Repeat the procedure with the other image. Same place, OK. Now they should lay on top of the image, and there they are. And you notice you get a lot of little places where the digital elevation model is kind of breaking through, and that's because the graphic card, the system doesn't know which one has priority, and there is an option there for setting priority. So let's go in and we'll set the priority on these, and that's called rendering. So the priority for rendering, you click on the rendering tab inside the layer properties and change this priority. Let's turn this down to about 4. 1 is the highest priority and 10 is a lower priority. So let's say give it a priority of 5 for each of these. And you say, why am I going to do that? That's because I'm going to do the same thing here and set its priorities to 5. Apply that. And you notice our DEM's taken over because its priority was the default of 1. And what I'm going to do is set its priority to 10. There. Now the DEM's there. It's going to, everything I put in from now on, as long as it's higher than 10, will have priority in rendering. Anything higher than 5 will have a priority over the imagery in rendering. And in this way you can kind of control whether roads placed on or end up getting covered over by an image and things like that. So now if we zoom in, we'll have a little better look at our imagery. Oops, excuse me. And there we go. And then we can grab our navigational tool and spin the data around. We can also center, zoom to a target, set our observer location, center on a target, like that, and then we can navigate around that target. So we can control what we see. We don't kind of spin everything around. And now you can start to see that hill and valleys that we were in. This obviously is somewhat of a it's been stripped down a little bit. And here's our horseshoe pond, and here's the area we're thinking of building the nature center in. Okay, so we're spinning right now around there. Let's reset that to this one, maybe here. Okay. Now, so we have an awful lot of digital elevation information out here that we don't need. You don't need this. And it's well, it's nice. Sometimes it looks great, but it can be a little distracting. So let's see how we can clean that out. Remove that a little bit, maybe. Spin around a little bit here. We see the area that we're interested in is here. So let's set an area of interest. Up here is a neat tool called AOI for setting an area of interest. You click on that, and this is what you get, some bars hopefully. You have to actually zoom all the way out to your DEM, your base information for your elevation. And you get this kind of a rectangle that you can adjust. What you do is you click on one of the green adjustment areas and then you can adjust it down and set your area of interest into some rectangle. You can move the whole rectangle by clicking inside of it and moving it around. So if you want to move it this way, you can do that. And then pull this green back in. So let's look there at that. Now, I think we want to zoom in a little bit more. Okay. An easier way to see this might be from the vertical position. So if we bring this up like that, we can do the AOI again. Move it up, and maybe you'd like just a little bit of the image beyond. In other words, we'll just have a little bit of a frame around the outside edge. Put a little bit of frame here, and what I'm looking into is this area right here. That's the corner of the area of interest. So we'll make it a little bit down beyond here too, and we'll make it a little bit up there as well. Okay. And once you've got it aligned, then we're going to take a look, and all you have to do is hit the enter button, and that becomes your area of interest, and things will be clipped to that. Alright, and when you're done with it, just grab another tool and we can look at that. So this is now what it looks like with our area of interest in there. Okay. Doesn't seem to be responding all that well with my property setting. There we go. That's a little better. If you still get issues with that, one thing you can do is just turn it off if it's annoying you, like that. But if you'd like to have that frame back in your life, one thing another option you can do besides the rendering issues, and I found effective, is the base height, is to actually add an offset. And I sometimes will add like a -10 offset, or well, -5. Let's just do -5 meters, and it drops it down below. It doesn't interfere now, and yet it does provide a nice border. So it looks pretty neat. Okay, so let's get on to our other piece and linking this back together with what we were doing before, which is if we come back in and we grab our cell towers. Let's grab them and pull them back in here. So here are the cell towers. We'll just have to give them some colors that are obvious in this landscape. Green will certainly stand out. And then we make them a little larger. Okay. And again, we don't see them because they're down here. There's one there. And the other one's somewhere here. They're the cell towers. We have to set the base height again. Pull it from so we'll do tower 2 first. Come up here in the layer properties, click on base height, make it float on a custom surface. Then here rendering, you might want to turn it, either keep it 1, 2, 3, anything above 5. So we say 3. In case we want something else to be above it, we can do that, or below it, we can also do that. And the same thing for the other. Set your base height to float on the surface. Fix your rendering to be about 3, and there you go. So now if we flip around, we should see some of these green dots right here, and there's one back here that represent our cell towers. But towers stick up. So why aren't we seeing our towers sticking up? And now, well, let's change these points. And what we can do is we can take cell tower 2 and we can say properties, go back to properties. We have rendering, we've done base height, but there's a thing called extrusion. And we can actually force that point to either go down or up, and just by adding some values in here. And we could actually add them from the base height. We can also add it for the features to be extruded. And we can identify a field and things like that. But since we don't have a field in there, let's just say they're 15, we said 15, I think 15 meter towers, 30 feet or so. Say hit that, hit apply, and hit OK. And it becomes a little surface, or a little, excuse me, a little cylinder sticking up that represents the cell tower. Let's do the same thing on tower 1. Properties, extrude it. Click on the button, click here, type in the value. OK and OK. So now we have these 2 cell towers sticking up 30 feet in the air. 15 meters. Well, no, actually, that'd be 45 feet in the air. Okay. So now, if we look back, we were looking down in this area for our site. Let's pop that in our place. That was in, I think, shape files. Let's see if I can find it here. Nature Center. There we go. Again, our Nature Center point fell down here somewhere. We need to put it on here. Actually, it didn't. If you notice, it fell in the right spot. Right there it is. Why did it fall in the right spot when everything else didn't? That's a test. Okay, it fell in the right spot. Let's make it nice and bright blue, because we had created it with a tool in 3D Analyst for creating a 3D point, and so it automatically, when we click there, not only did it record the X and Y like our other cell tower had, but it also recorded the Z value. And when we brought it into our ArcScene, that Z value brought it up to the baseline and added it up. And so it fell where it's supposed to fall, right on the surface. Now the next question we might want to have is, how's that view shed that we create? How do we bring that in? And so finally, for the last thing, we'll bring that view shed in. So if we can bring in the view shed. There's Nature Center view shed. And let's go ahead and make pyramids. And here we are. Again, though, this view shed is a surface down here. We need to get it up on top of our surface. Before we do that and pull in garbage, 0 are the areas that we cannot see, or 1 and 1 is the area that we can see. So since we're interested in here in what we can see, let's make that no color. And what we can't see, instead of making it really dark, let's see if we can't make it a little less. So now we right click, go to properties for the layer, set the base height to be floating on the surface, set our rendering to be something a little lower than the image, and then we're all set. And we should have those, that base should come up to here. And we haven't been able to do the view shed from here. Interesting. Let's try that again. Base height. We grabbed the wrong surface. I want to pick it from the DEM. There we go. So now now you notice the thing keeps breaking through here and there. We don't want that to happen. What we want is the view shed to definitely be rendered on top. So we've got it set at 2. Let's just push it to 1. And it should take over. So here's our view shed. From here, what can we see? If we get down to there, we can look. And those areas that are dark, we cannot see. And those that are, we can. Clearly we can. Now, let's see. Let's zip back a little bit so that we can see our here's a cell tower here and one here. This is just barely visible on the edge from here, and this one is actually shown as visible from there because it's so high. So we'll have to adjust some more with our point, create our point here, and move it around a little bit to find out which area is the best spot that would be visible. Okay, so that's kind of a neat way of what you can do. Obviously, instead of a view shed overlay, it could be a land use overlay. It could be soils. It could be anything you want to drape on top of the elevation information. And finally, I'll just finish with some little neat tools that they have in navigational. We can fly in so that you can actually fly into this this scene and fly around a little bit and see what it looks like. And you have to be a little gentle and careful because it's and then you can adjust your speed with the up and down arrows. You can bank to the left, bank to the right, that type of thing, and essentially follow around the terrain. And you've seen these fly through effects kind of things. And of course, for something like this, having a bigger DEM, a bigger scene to fly through is a good idea. And when if you hold the shift key down, you can lock your elevation information, your elevation of the flight, so that you aren't going in and out of the image, because it's very easy to accidentally go into the image. So we can fly right up to the pond. So these are some of just a nice navigational tool, and you can present this and use this for doing a nice overview of the area of interest. And we can go back. Okay, so that's ArcScene. Those are some of the things you can do with it.